Good morning. We'd like to welcome you to Doni show. We with the one and only Shannon Sneed. Good morning, Shannon.
Good. How are you?
I'm blessed by the best. How are you today?
I am good. No complaints. Just, on the grind, just working to get our message out. Tom Perez and Shannon for governor.
So let's talk about that, Shannon. You're just a city council person. And then what? You don't want to be a city council anymore, you want to stay?
Well, to people in office like Tom Perez and myself, who have experience, take it with the experience that's changed the state of Maryland.
So, what prompted you to run for lieutenant?
Honey, I'm going to be honest with you. I was not thinking about running for lieutenant governor. My work, I've been on council with the University of Maryland, from Morgan City, and so in the community grassroots, athletic we talk about being sure women are back making we have victims, voice for putting that land in going for to understand how the level one confident our time based on those experiences is why he picks me to be his lieutenant governor.
You said a lot there. Where do we start? My business, minority business. That's something very near and dear to my heart. I've been working for many years to bring attention to disparity. Baltimore City is majority Black city. We have a Black mayor, Black comptroller, Black city council president. Yet when it comes to the contracts, and how do we change it on?
Want to make sure and the that's in our state. I think 30% make we want to make sure that folks not only have jobs, justice, and opportunities, but small businesses, minority business are able to grow here in the state of Maryland. And that's removing red tape. That's making sure that we have incentives to make sure that people who are interested in growing their business can. And that hasn't happened in the past. And then when you are able to get some of those contracts, when you are able to have a seat at the table, listening to find out what's going on to make the system better for someone else. And that's what we haven't seen. You talked about Baltimore City. As a Baltimore City council person, I heard folks say firsthand, listen, I don't have time to cut through the red tape. I don't have time to go through all the policies and procedures that the city wants us to go to. And the same thing happens on the state level. So we want to make sure that we remove all of those things. And then we want to make sure that contractors are paid on time. I hear small businesses say all the time, I can't wait for the state to finally decide to give me my money. I have to pay my employees right away. For my business to be afloat, I need to get paid. And it can't be a year later. It can't be 6 months later. And so as the next governor and lieutenant governor, that's what I want to make sure that we do.
What makes Tom Perez so good?
Tom Perez has experience. He has worked to making sure that Maryland workers have jobs. He's worked to make sure that they have opportunity. I will say it over and over again, and have a seat at the table. Tom Perez was the labor secretary for the state of Maryland. Tom Perez was the labor secretary for the U.S. labor secretary as well. And so he was also the civil rights attorney. And so with his experience and my experience, that's what we want. Someone that can go in from day one and get the job done. And so that's what makes Tom so different and I so different from the rest of the tickets. No other team can say they worked in Baltimore City. They've sat on the council of Baltimore City. That they've been in the roots of Baltimore City. I'm raising my daughter in Baltimore City. My husband and I live in Baltimore City. And there's no one better than me to be an advocate, to know inside and out what's happening inside of government and outside of government.
Are you pleased with the progress being made in Baltimore?
I think with the lieutenant governor and a governor who's going to be a team member to our mayor, absolutely. That's what I'm focused on. I want to make sure that our mayor and other county executives have a team member, that they have someone that's willing to sit at the table to come up with ideas and solutions, and then we'll back it. And that's what we need. I feel like our mayor is doing the best job that he can do. We're talking about decades of neglect. We're talking about
time out. We're talking about decades of neglect, but like right now, you say that you want this job. So say you do get the lieutenant governor job, are you then going to say, well, it's going to take some time because it took decades? Because that's not you, but that's the logic that we're hearing from elected officials today, even with respect to the mayor. Oh, it's going to take years, but you want the job now. And so,
but I don't think it takes years when you have an idea and a vision and you have a partner. Like Doni, we've heard no. I'm going to say I won't put you in a category, but I've heard no many times, and that didn't stop me from getting the job done. I heard no to saying that we're going to let a new contract come in, and then automatically they're going to let people who've been working in our buildings go for 15 and 20 years. They said it's been that way. I'm like, but it shouldn't stay that way. That doesn't make sense. You mean to tell me that a person who's been working a contract job here in the city, when a new contract comes in and they've proven themselves, they've done a good job, that they should be fired? It has to be the will of the top person. It has to be with the will of the lieutenant governor and the governor to make sure that our counties and our cities are doing well. So no, I don't think it takes decades to clean it up. But I know with Tom Perez and myself as the governor and the next lieutenant governor, that we can address all of those issues. It takes the right person and the passion to get it done. And that to me, what's missing. We come up with all excuses, but the bottom line is it belongs at the top. We have to look at the top to make sure. And the governor is the top in Maryland.
Shannon, when it comes to minority business, we just want a mayor, a governor that will sign contracts for Black companies, that was to qualified Black companies. Let me say that. When the mayor first came in, one of the first things he signed was a $42 million contract. It was not to a minority vendor. Too often, our vendors are just as qualified as any other, but there is no political will. And in terms of them getting paid, I mean, that seems to, it's almost expected that Baltimore is going to be slow. I mean, right now in the middle of a pandemic, City Hall is closed. How can the people of Baltimore believe in politicians these days? I mean, it's very difficult.
Doni, I'm still going to say that it still goes back to look at what we have done. And that's why I still say it goes back to experience. It's going back to being there. And some things to me are common sense. To me, when we were in that pandemic and folks who have worked hard but couldn't get unemployment insurance, a system that they paid into, to me, that's a problem. So it's going back to look at all of those things that have gone wrong and to correct them. To me, that's where it starts. It's everyday people, making sure that we fight for everyday people and businesses. And to me, as a councilwoman and as a resident of Baltimore City and someone who understands and believes in businesses, and we know that most of our small businesses hire right here in Maryland. They are what keeps our economy going in Maryland. So it's the will. It still comes back to the will and making sure that that's done. We can't just say businesses are open. We have to make sure that they're open and making sure that our minorities have access to it, to make sure we have to even the playing field. And I know it's easy to get up here and say that, but as a person who's done it, a person who's worked in government, who understands that, I'm not just throwing out ideas and throwing out numbers. I understand that you have to work towards that. And I believe with the right people at the table, again, myself and Tom Perez as your next governor and lieutenant governor, that we can get it done.
The CIAA just came to Baltimore. It's the first time that it's ever been in Baltimore. It's been in Charlotte for 30, 35, 36 years. Do you think Black businesses got a fair shake?
I'm going to say, Doni, that I don't know the numbers, so I can't speak on it. But I know that I was happy about it, that it was coming. I know that other folks were happy about that it was coming. You actually saw Zooms and chat about it with young professionals to make sure that they knew about it. I went to a networking event, a happy hour with young Black folks, talking about what we were going to do for the rest of the weekend. We were excited to have it here, and we were great hosts. People came from all over. I met with the mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina. She said she had a fabulous time. I mean, that's what we want. I've been to CIAA when it was in North Carolina. My husband's going to it and supported it. So the fact that it was in Baltimore City, in a Black city, I just think that this is a start, and we can always grow and make it better.
It left Charlotte because there were a lot of happy hours, but nobody was attending the games.
Well, we went to the game. And as a matter of fact, Tom and I went to the game. But still, the games were packed. I know other people who went to the games. So, listen, I'm happy that we have the opportunity to have it in Baltimore. And I think as the next governor or lieutenant governor, we need to seize every opportunity to promote Baltimore City and to promote Maryland, to make sure we get other events like this. Baltimore City is not the only great place that this can happen in. There is a Prince George's County. There is the Eastern Shore. People always forget about the Eastern Shore as well. As a graduate of the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, we have the whole entire state. This does not have to be the only tournament to come to Maryland. There are other events that we can support and make sure that we get behind.
You know, when I look at AFRAM, when I look at Artscape, when I look at how Black events are treated in this city, I mean, they put AFRAM out at Druid Hill Park. And we're going to shift to the state, but let me just say this one thing about Baltimore. To be a Black city with a Black mayor, Black city council president, a Black comptroller, personally, I expected, as a graduate of a historically Black college, to see the banners of these various HBCUs celebrated the same way we see emphasis put on Artscape. When you go to Artscape, it's all mapped out. But you know, like I know, once you start moving an event, they move the airframe from the harbor out to Druid Hill Park. I don't want to go out to Druid Hill Park to a festival. The park is where the zoo is. The zoo is for animals. We want our event in downtown Baltimore like everyone else. But it seems that there's this subtle, covert, institutionalized racism that continues to raise its ugly head here in the city of Baltimore, regardless of if we have a plethora of Black elected officials or not.
Doni, again, I'm going to say it has to be the will of the people, but I would like, my vision is to take over the whole city. So we should have events downtown and we should have them in a park. Listen, I'm from the school and I'm telling my age as a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. For the Greek, we would be in a park having a good time in Philly. We would be all over the city. You would shut it down. So I'm not opposed to being outside, especially because we living in COVID days. I feel like some things should be outside, but I think we should take the city over. Shouldn't just be in one area. It should be big enough where we have many events. And so I just think that from one time being here, we know, I hope that there is a committee that says, what can we do better next time? Because that's how I work.
Well, I tell you how they can do better. They can get the young people from Baltimore City Public Schools involved. They can get the young people from the recreation centers who play basketball involved. This is a basketball town. I know you weren't born here, but to have a CIAA and not have a Dunbar national champion coach Bob Wade invited is a smack in the face for those of us who truly understand the history of this city. There's some serious neglect. And I heard you mention a happy hour. I know there was one down at the Christopher Columbus Center. That kind of threw me too, because I was expecting a Black event to be probably at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum. But let's move along to education. What will Tom Perez do for Baltimore and Prince George's County, two school jurisdictions consistently at the bottom of the pack, 23 and 24 statewide?
Donnie, I have a 5-year-old that I'm raising. I believe, she goes to public school in Baltimore City. And so I believe that one of the things that we have to do, and let me not just say that Tom Perez and myself, supporting what our experts have said will work, and that's supporting the blueprint. That's making sure that you don't do half of it, that you actually do the whole entire thing. The other thing that we make sure that we have to do is, I'm going to talk about jobs again. It still comes back to making sure our students have opportunities in jobs. Our high schoolers, I worked at the Mayor's Office of Employment Development, and that was huge in the city. And so we need to make sure that we keep that going and actually put money into it and making sure that kids have jobs. There are a number of things that we can do. I was just in Annapolis yesterday speaking out in reference to our teachers, our what's the right term?
Para-educators.
Sure that our assistants that are in the school system are paid as well. These are folks who clean our buildings. These are folks that drive the buses. These are folks that give our students hugs. Like, we have to make sure not only are the buildings safe and not crumbling and our students can drink out the water fountains, we also got to make sure that they're actually learning something and getting something out of it. And to me, as a parent, I'm doing what I can do. Like, I'm still doing homework with my student, my daughter. I'm still making sure that I'm supporting the schools and the teachers. I'm making sure that I'm doing my part. I refuse to take my daughter out of public school in Baltimore City.
But Shannon, I'm not.
Some changes, absolutely.
I'm not hearing what Tom Perez will do to make Baltimore and Prince George's two of the two majority Black school jurisdictions, what he will do to put emphasis on getting these two school jurisdictions from the bottom. Is that a priority, Exam?
Absolutely. It has to be a priority, period.
So what will he do?
And that's what I'm saying. We have something on the table that our experts have put on the table, Donnie, to say, this is the solution. We have to support it. And so there it is. I'm like, we have the blueprint. Support the blueprint is what our experienced teachers and advocates are saying. And no one has. I'm like, that's what we have to do. And that's what Tom Perez will do. Mm-hmm. He will support it. He will make sure that it's fully funded, Donnie. It starts there. If you're saying that's it, we know what it is.
Is it money? Is it money? Do you think that's what's holding back children in Baltimore City public schools? Money?
I think that there are a number of things, Donnie, to be absolutely honest with you. There are students who are coming from some broken homes that they don't even, like, Donnie, they're getting their siblings together because mom and dad is not there. Like, there are some kids who have not eaten the day before. Like, our schools, unfortunately, have to address all of that because folks are not there. So, Donnie, I just think that there are a number of issues. And as the next governor, lieutenant governor, we are committed to addressing those issues. Understand firsthand, my mother was a single parent woman. She had 3 daughters going to school. My mom was doing it on her own. She had a village, but my mom made sure that we went to school every day, Donnie. My mom made sure that we did homework in the evening, even when she wasn't there, because she was at home. She was at work. She would still come home and say, homework was done, right? Chores were done. Everybody doesn't have that, Donnie. And I feel like it takes more than just making sure that it's money. It takes all of our life, resources and time and going into the home. And everybody doesn't want government in the home. Let's be honest. But what we have to do is make sure that we have the tools to address the many needs. It's not one thing.
One of the things that the governor has consistently brought up, because quite often, you know, Baltimore's a 9-1 Democratic town. So anything Larry Hogan says is absolutely evil, diabolically of the devil. I get it. But one thing I've heard him ask for is accountability. For instance, you have a child, and your child's 5, so they're not asking, you know, she's not asking for a lot of money. But when your child gets 10, 15, and they say, Mom, I need $20. And then say your child comes back to you an hour later, say, hey, Mom, I need another $20. Before you give them the second $20, you're going to ask, what did you do with the first $20? So when the conversation shifts to public education, I hear Democrats in Baltimore, quite often Black Democrats in Baltimore, the mayor, we need more money. We need more money. We need more money. Is it money, or is it also accountability for the money that we have? Because when I look at Baltimore City School headquarters, you have people making 6 figures. Now, I don't know how true Fox is, but they're saying that we're failing miserably. How do we balance that?
So again, Doni, I'm still going to say, as the next governor and lieutenant governor, we will make sure that
How?
the blueprint is fully funded. We will make sure that we work with the heads of our county executives to our mayor in Baltimore City to make sure that they actually have exactly what they need to get it done, Doni. So if it's sitting there, when something went wrong in the city, here's a good example. When the police department they were saying the police did their overtime. We have to do something about it. We can't go on as the next council to let this go on. We got to go through it. You know what we did, Doni? We brought everyone to the table. We had open hearings, and what's the problem? Line by line. We did it. So to me, that is what you do.
What is it? You don't skip.
You make sure, wait a minute, let me finish. And you make sure that folks are doing what they have to do. Doni, it's to me, it's that simple. You bring everybody to the table, because I can't believe that we're not interested in our children succeeding.
So what's the challenge?
It takes all of us.
So what was the challenge in Baltimore City? Bringing the mayor, the police commissioner, the city council, the state's attorney together. What's the challenge here in Baltimore City? How come those 3 people aren't on the same page?
I cannot speak to that. I am not there to answer.
Well, when you were on the council,
what I do know is that as the next governor and lieutenant governor, I work by bringing everyone to the table so we can all figure it out. So if there's something wrong, we all have to work as a team to figure it out. And then as the next governor and the lieutenant governor, I'm committed to it. I'm like, there's no way in the world that if my daughter is in Baltimore City Schools and somebody else's daughter is in public city schools in Prince George's County, that we can't figure it out. But again, it has to be the will of the people. It has to be the will of those sitting at the table. And if you're not willing to work, if you're not willing to figure it out, then you shouldn't have a seat there.
So how will you take Montgomery County? You have Tom Perez, you have Doug Gansler, you have Ashwani Jain, you have John King. You have at least 4 candidates from Montgomery County. What's different about Tom Perez?
I'll say it again. Tom's and I career has been about the people. Tom's career has been about making sure that people have a seat at the table. My career has been talking about jobs the entire time. We know that when people have jobs and careers, when they don't have to work 3 and 4 jobs, and they can be at home with their families, because it goes back to the family. And so we can make sure that our families are making decent wages, and we can make sure that they have health care, Doni, if we can make sure they have an opportunity to sit at the table, that's the difference. That makes a huge difference. And I won't ever, that's why I always talk about it as a Baltimore City councilwoman. Jobs. You want to stop crime, you want to stop some things, make sure that folks have decent jobs, that they're making good wages, that they have health care. Doni, my mom had a stroke. and she was working a contract job with no benefits. It changed her life. She would never have thought that she would have a stroke and it would change her life, that she wouldn't be able to hardly walk, that she wouldn't be able to get like basic dental assistance. She didn't do it. Doni, these are things that are happening in everybody's, everyday people, families. And I feel like as the next governor and the lieutenant governor, those are the kind of things that we want to address, to make sure that people can actually have health care, that people have jobs, that people can have a seat at the table, and they know that someone's fighting for them.
What's special about your team? What separates your team? I mean, you've got some pretty dynamic candidates running. I mean, over on the Republican side, you could the Democratic primary winner could be facing a Republican like Kelly Schultz, who's been involved with labor licensing, regulation, commerce. What's unique about your team?
Doni, I'll repeat it again.
I don't want you to repeat. I want you to articulate what's different.
Doni,
You're sounding like a robot. I mean, you're saying I'm repeating the same thing over. I don't want you to repeat. I want you to articulate what's unique about Tom Perez. For instance, hold tight. I've not seen Tom Perez in Baltimore.
Doni, I'm going to disagree with that, because Tom Perez has been in Baltimore. And if you want to see Tom in Baltimore, if you want to have a conversation,
I'm not running for office.
Baltimore, we can. What you say?
I'm not running for office. The people need to see Tom Perez. Where has he been in Baltimore?
And so he's been all over in Baltimore, Doni.
I live here in Sandtown. We'd love to host him.
I know that he's met with community members in the Gardenville community. I know that he's met with folks, and I don't. And listen, Doni, I know.
I'm just saying we'd love to have him in Sandtown here on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Say that again.
We'd love to see him here on historic Pennsylvania Avenue in historic West Baltimore.
Pennsylvania Avenue as well. I was with him on Pennsylvania Avenue at the Avenue Market. He was actually at the Avenue Market.
Oh, you should have called me. I only live a block away.
Well, next time we will, but I know for a fact that he's there.
It's a little late now. We missed him.
Doni, but it's okay that you missed him. You can see him again. It's all right. We'll get him back, and we'll make sure that we call you so you can lay eyes on him. But he has been.
Well, not just me. I got to tell you, I also represent the Black press. And so it's not just Be More News and Black USA that need to see him. There's also the Baltimore Times. There's the Afro. There's WEAA. There are a number of Black news outlets. And let me just say this. I want to reiterate that without the Black press, our issues don't come to the forefront. We didn't even get to mass incarceration. Speaking of which, what will Tom Perez do to reverse? You mentioned 21217 Pennsylvania Avenue. More returning citizens come here than any other part of the state, but we've not seen Tom Perez.
Doni, I'm going to say that I live in 21217 now. And so please, we know that when citizens are returning to home to Baltimore City, we have a whole area dedicated. It's called the Rec Center in Mount Diamond Mall, and it's dedicated for returning citizens. Doni, I'm going to say that area because I used to work there, the Mayor's Office of Employment Development. Folks are working really hard in there. Gerald Brown is no longer in there, but you have people that know the issues there, that head to Annapolis to fight for everyday folks that are coming home. So I'm going to say we're going to make sure that the rec stays up, that the rec stays funded, and that's what will make a difference, to make sure that it's a whole center dedicated to folks coming home. But we also have to remember that there are businesses, small businesses that can hire folks, that are allowed to set their own goals and allowed to hire who they want to. So that goes again back to, listen, we want to make sure that we support our small businesses. We want to make sure that minorities are able to open businesses and support their families. And that's what Tom and I are about. Jobs, justice, and opportunity. So there it is. And you asked me before and I didn't. You said we're going around in circles, but the fact is Tom and Hyde have more experience. Tom has been, again, I'm going to say it, Tom has worked for the Labor Department. He's managed over 17,000 employees working for the U.S., being the U.S. Labor Secretary, Doni. So we are the best ones to be on the ground. You're talking about experience, we have it. You're talking about folks who've been through some things. That's us. And I've reached out to, I'm not going to put anybody on blast, but I've reached out to you. You're the Black media. I reached out to other folks as well to tell them. I'll reach out to the Tribune all the way in Philadelphia. But Doni, I've done my part. And if folks don't want to cover it, it's not like that we haven't sent out information and press.
Well, please add us to, you're saying a lot. I kind of want to give you some, Doni at bemorenews.com. We'd love to put up information. And let me just get to that rec center thing. He's down there in Montgomery County. Montgomery County is one of the wealthiest, and we got a couple of minutes left. Montgomery County is one of the wealthiest counties in the state of Maryland. Baltimore City has not had a new recreation center in decades. I've seen the recreation centers in Prince George's County and Washington, D.C. What will you do as Lieutenant Governor to ensure that we have some brand new recreation centers?
Doni, there's a Cahill just opened up, I believe. I just took my daughter there. There's a brand new pool there. That's great. A whole exercise room. And so I'm just promoting that because that is something new in West Baltimore that we do have. And
I hear all of this new stuff in West Baltimore. I live in Sandtown. You used to live over there in East Baltimore. East Baltimore and West Baltimore have not gotten any new recreation facilities in decades. What, Bocheck? They reopened it after years.
Bocheck Park is open. That field house is open, and there's a whole plan dedicated to it. So that's not true, Doni. That has been closed for over 20 years, Doni.
They reopened an old rec. I'm glad.
When I got over there, and when I was campaigning in 2015 and 2016, a number of the neighbors, but one in particular, Mr. Rocky Brown, said, if I support you, I want to see that rec center open before you leave.
I want to see some brand new recreation centers, Shannon, not 20 and 30-year-old rec centers that are dilapidated. We want brand new recs like they have in D.C. and Prince George's. We want some of that good stuff. Do you remember when Stephanie Rawlins Blake was in office? She took $10 million from the recs and ran it on a damn Grand Prix that lasted 5 minutes. We are sick of it. Let me say this. As a resident who's lived there 54 or 56 years, we are sick of incompetence. We are sick of Democratic promises. I remember when Anthony Brown ran for governor, they said, vote for the Democrats. We don't care if it's Democrat, Republican, purple, black, green, whatever. We want service, and we're tired of lip service.
Doni, and as a resident, I agree with you. And so that's why I'm saying it has to be the will of the people. And that's period. But our mayor in Baltimore has to make sure that rec centers are open. And as the next governor and lieutenant governor, we're going to support him. Again, it goes back to what is the will. The will starts at the top, Doni, and we will be at the top to make sure that happens across Baltimore City. But on the eastern shore as well, Maryland is bigger than Baltimore City and Montgomery County. We have areas like Somerset County in Maryland that look worse than that are not thriving. And so we just
I don't care about that, Shannon. You know why? Let me tell you why. Because when it comes to the Maryland State Lottery, let me tell you something. I've been to the Eastern Shore. Time out. Now, Shannon, you're talking to me like I'm ignorant. Shannon, you're talking to me as if I'm ignorant. I've been to Western Maryland. I've been to the Eastern Shore. I've been to Harford County. Nobody has the need of Baltimore City. And as a resident, as a resident who's voting for a governor, I really am not concerned about elsewhere. I want to know about Baltimore City.
But Doni, I'm going to be the lieutenant governor of the entire state, so I care about those areas, and that's what matters to me.
What have you done for Baltimore City while you were here then, Shannon?
You're telling me this is going to go all over. You said, God, you told me that this show will be seen by all people.
Shannon, you've become quite a crafty politician. Baltimore City has been neglected.
Please let me talk. That we cannot say that I only care about Baltimore City. I care and want all people to
Don't twist my words. Baltimore City has more need, more poverty, and so we deserve more resources. No excuses.
That's right, but I am going to be, if the people vote for me in time, will be the next governor and lieutenant governor. And so our goal will be to make sure that all people thrive, Doni, in these areas.
That sounds real good.
And so that is the goal, Doni, to make sure that you do it in Baltimore City and you do it in Prince George's County and you do it in West and you do it on the Eastern Shore. So you hit all the areas. It has to be that way, Doni. I'm not leaving. I don't want to leave anybody behind. And that's the goal, to make sure that everybody has an opportunity and a seat at the table. I just can't sit here as a woman to be like, I'm leaving somebody else behind. I just can't do that. And that's unfair when we all pay taxes here. And I know we have to go because it's 10 o'clock. So I thank you for allowing me to be on the show. And again, I thank you for letting me have a platform. And we'll make sure that Tom Perez, because I know he has been. He sat down with the Urban League during Freddie Gray. He's been to Douglas.
The Urban League. We ain't heard from the Urban League in a long time, Shannon Sneed. Don't just come on, Shannon. Look, we're going to come back to you. No. Listen, the Urban League is right down the street from where I live. We have not seen the Urban League before Freddie Gray. Come on now. Stop that.
He's been here. I just want to go 1 point, Doni.
Don't forget the Men's Center in East Baltimore and the B. Gaddy House. But thank you so much for joining us, Shannon Sneed. You're quite the politician.
Thank you, Doni. Have a good day.
Keep watching BlackUSA.News. My name's Donnie Glover. Stay tuned for William Honolulu at 10.